The sky above Veltrax 9 was dark and heavy. Red clouds moved slowly like smoke, and the air smelled like metal. Captain Raynor stood outside the command tent, watching the horizon. 30 human soldiers were with him on this planet. They had been fighting for weeks, low on food, low on ammo, and tired, very tired. They had sent many calls for backup. Today, finally, a message came from command. Reinforcements arriving. Hold your position. Everyone expected war mechs, maybe airstrikes. Even 5 more soldiers would have been good. But what arrived was something no one could understand. 3 small transport pods landed silently outside the base. No engine sounds, no dust, just quiet, smooth landings. The soldiers stood ready, pointing their rifles at the pods. The doors opened slowly, and out stepped 3 alien women. They didn't wear armor, no weapons, no gear, just long coats, with strange symbols, glowing lightly. Their skin was smooth and pale with hints of silver. Their eyes were too bright like stars. Captain Raynor stepped forward. State your name and purpose. The tallest alien spoke. Her voice was soft, but it echoed unnaturally. I am Vera. These are Sarah and Leia. We were assigned. We are here to support the human unit. Raynor frowned. Your nurses? Yes, Vera said. Calm. You are all injured. We are here to help you survive. The soldiers looked at each other. This made no sense. They needed fighters, guns, armor. Not ... Nurses. Private Kane whispered to his friend. What are 3 alien girls gonna do out here? Sing us lullabies. But within an hour, something strange happened. Private Harlow collapsed near the water unit. Blood was coming from his nose and ears. He was shaking badly. Before anyone could act, Nurse Vera walked to him and placed her hand on his forehead. Her eyes glowed white. Then silence. Harlow stopped shaking. His breathing returned. The blood vanished like it had never been there. Harlow sat up, blinking. What ... happened? You were dying, Vera said softly. Now you are not. The soldier stared in shock. What kind of medicine was that? Raynor asked. No medicine, Vera replied. Just adjustment. That night, tension spread through the camp. Some soldiers felt grateful. Others felt fear. Nurse Sarah walked silently through the tents. She did not speak unless asked something. She never blinked. Nurse Leia sat near the outer perimeter, staring at the stars. She didn't sleep. She didn't eat. She didn't even seem to breathe. Raynor began writing a report in his tablet. 3 alien nurses sent by command. Non-human. Extremely advanced healing. No visible tools. No gear. Possibly psychic. Unknown mission details. Monitoring closely. But before he could finish, a scream echoed from the eastern side of the base. It was Private Jenkins. Everyone rushed to his tent, but he was gone. The flap was open. Only his boots were left on the ground, along with something strange. A blue feather, glowing faintly in the dark. Captain Raynor stared at it. Veltrax birds don't come this close to the ground. He looked up and saw Nurse Leia already, standing near the spot, still silent, watching the dark. When he asked her, "Did you see anything?" she answered without emotion. "I saw Jenkins walk into the storm." "There is no storm," Raynor replied. "There will be," she said, and then turned away. The next morning, Jenkins was still missing. No trail, no heat signature, nothing. But strange markings appeared on the camp floor, spiral shapes. Drawn in ash. Private Kane could not sleep. He lay in his cot, staring at the thin roof of the tent, but something felt wrong inside him. His body was warm. His chest felt heavy. His right hand, his trigger hand, was glowing. He sat up in panic. Blue light ran up his wrist like veins made of electricity. His skin buzzed. Then he remembered ... earlier that day. Nurse Vera had touched his hand just for a second while checking his pulse, and now, something inside him was changing. Kane rushed out of the tent. He ran to the wash area, pushed open the mirror locker, and looked at himself. His pupils were shining. He wasn't imagining it. They were glowing silver. Captain Raynor entered seconds later, pulling on a jacket. "What's going on?" Private Kane turned around, shaking. "Sir, I think she did something to me." "Who?" "Nurse Vera. I didn't feel it then, but now look at my hand." Raynor stepped forward. The glow faded the moment he got close. "Nothing there now," Raynor said, voice low. "Just normal skin. But I swear, it was there, bright like plasma." Raynor narrowed his eyes. "You're not the first. Harlow says his dreams are louder, more clear. Like voices speaking science he doesn't understand." Kane blinked. "Science? He said he saw equations in the stars, Raynor muttered. Equations he couldn't read. Until now. Meanwhile, Nurse Sarah stood by the old watchtower, alone. A gust of wind moved her coat slightly, but her body didn't react, not even a blink. Sergeant Diaz approached her, gripping his rifle. "I've got questions," he said roughly. Sarah didn't move. "I saw you touch Jenkins before he vanished." His arm. Just a light touch. Sarah turned her head slowly. "He was chosen." "Chosen for what?" "For removal." Diaz's grip tightened. "You killed him." "No," she said. "The world took him. We only helped the process move." "What process? You'll see, soon." Diaz raised his weapon halfway, then stopped. He wasn't sure why. Suddenly, his hand was numb. He looked down. His rifle was melting like wax. "No guns inside the circle," Sarah said gently. "Rules must be followed." Diaz stepped back, terrified. The rifle reformed in his hands a moment later, just as solid as before. Back at the central command room, Raynor gathered the soldiers. "All right, everyone. Listen up. We don't fully know what these nurses are. They claim to heal, but they are changing us." Kane had glowing veins. Harlow is having visions. Diaz said. His gun melted. Leia, standing near the entrance, interrupted softly. "You are evolving." Raynor looked at her. "Without permission. You were always meant to change. This planet requires it. We came to hold this base, not to mutate into something else." Leia walked to the holodable and tapped once. The table lit up, showing a full map of Valtrax 9. But this time, the land was not the focus, it was the people. Glowing outlines of all 30 soldiers moved across the display. Some were green, some yellow. 4 were already turning red. "These colors represent acceptance levels," Leia explained. "Your minds resist, but your cells obey." "What happens to the red ones?" Raynor asked. "They disappear," Leia said. Later that night, the camp was hit by a silent storm. Not of rain or wind, but of light. Glowing threads danced across the night sky, like falling energy strands. They didn't burn, but when they touched anything, organic plants, skin, even insects, they left a faint shimmer behind. Raynor stood in awe. Then he saw the nurses. All 3 of them walked into the center of the storm. Arms open, heads raised. The energy danced around them like it knew them. Private Kane, now sweating and shaking, stepped into the light too. The air smelled like blood and smoke. Reed's eyes burned as he stumbled through the tall alien grass, carrying Kayla on his back. Her body was limp. She had taken a spear to the side, protecting him. "Keep going," she whispered weakly, near his ear. He didn't answer. He couldn't. His jaw was tight. His legs were shaking. But he didn't stop. Not this time. A few minutes earlier, everything had gone wrong. They had followed the heat signal from the relic cube, hoping to find a safe zone or supplies. Instead, they walked into a trap. 3 insectoid hunters had been waiting. Bigger, faster, better weapons. The moment Kayla saw them, she pushed Reed out of the way and took a spear through her ribs. Reed had never screamed louder in his life. Now, he was running for both of them. Behind him, he could hear the hunters clicking and tracking their scent. One of them had Keller's blood on its claws. They wanted to finish the kill. He found a fallen tree, half hollow, and slipped inside. With her, the space was tight, dark, wet, but it was cover. Kayla groaned. Her silver-blue skin was losing color. "Don't talk," he said. "You saved me. Now it's my turn." She gave him a faint smile. "Foolish human." Reed took off his jacket and pressed it to her wound. She winced, but didn't cry out. Then they both heard it. The hunters were nearby. Crunch, crunch. Leaves breaking. Ground shifting. Reed held his breath and reached for the blade on his hip. It shook in his hand. They were surrounded. One insect crept close to the tree trunk. It sniffed the air. Reed's heart pounded so hard, he thought it might give them away. But just as the creature raised its claw crack, a loud explosion echoed nearby. Something or someone had stepped into the trap they had avoided earlier. The insects turned and ran toward. The sound gone red, waited 30 seconds. Then another 30, still silence. He turned to Kayla. "They're gone. For now." She was unconscious. He carried her again, deeper into the forest, until he found a small pit under a thick root system. He laid her down, covered her with leaves, and sat beside her watching. Waiting. Night came fast, and with it, the cold. Reed leaned over her, sharing what little body heat he had. His thoughts were loud inside his mind. Why had she saved him? Why had she taken that spear? He remembered her words. "I don't want to survive alone." Now, she might not survive at all. He clenched his fists. I'm not letting you die here, he whispered. At sunrise, Kayla woke. Her eyes opened slowly. Still alive? She asked weakly. Barely, he replied. But I've made a plan. She looked at him with tired eyes. What plan? We stop running. We fight. She raised an eyebrow. Fight what? All of them, he said. Kayla laughed just a little. You're more alien than me. But then she nodded. Let's begin. They built traps that day. Simple ones. Pitfalls. Tripwires made from alien vines. Spears carved from bone. Reed scouted ahead. Kayla guided him, pointing out weak spots in the terrain, warning him of creatures and plants. She was recovering fast. My species heals quickly, she explained. If we survive 2 more nights, I'll be at full strength. Good, Reed said. Because we're not hiding anymore. By dusk, they were ready. And so were the hunters. This time, the insects walked straight into the traps. One was crushed under a falling tree trunk. Another stepped into a pit full of sharpened sticks. The third escaped only to be ambushed by Kayla. Herself, even weak, she was faster than it expected. Reed and Kayla stood over the bodies. This was no longer just survival. This was war. He was just a kid. Thin arms, wide green eyes, dirty face. Scared. Reed found him hiding inside a cracked alien pod, shivering. The boy's skin was a pale purple, his hair white like snow. He didn't speak at first, just stared at Reed and Kayla, breathing hard, ready to run. Reed knelt down and put his weapon on the ground. We're not here to hurt you, he said calmly. Are you alone? The boy nodded slowly. Kayla crossed her arms, not convinced. He could be bait, she whispered. He's just a kid, Reed replied. In this game, Kayla said, coldly, children can kill too. But Reed ignored her warning. He gave the boy some food and water. What's your name? The boy looked down. Tiv, he whispered. Kayla still didn't trust him. But Reed made the choice. He let the boy follow them by night. The 3 of them were sitting near a weak fire made from dry alien leaves. Kayla sat with her back to the tree, her eyes scanning the forest. Reed watched the boy. Tiv was shaking from cold. Reed handed him his half of the relic cube to warm his hands. You remind me of my brother, Reed said. Did he die? Tiv asked. Reed nodded. He didn't deserve it. None of us did. Kayla looked over, but said nothing. Then the night grew quiet. Too quiet. Kayla stood quickly. Something's wrong. A sound came from behind the tree, soft clicking. Tiv stood too, but something had changed. His hands weren't shaking anymore. Reed looked down. The relic cube was gone. Tiv stepped back, smiling. I'm sorry, he said. 3 armored aliens dropped from the trees. Weapons raised. Kayla reached for her blade, but it was too late. Trap, she shouted. The aliens fired shock bolts. Reed fell. Kayla collapsed beside him, groaning from the blast. Tiv walked up and looked down at them. I didn't want to do this. But they promised to take me home. If I brought them someone strong. He dropped the relic cube and ran off with the others. Darkness closed in. Hours passed. Reed opened his eyes. Everything hurt. Kayla was still beside him, breathing hard. We're still alive, she said through gritted teeth. He set us up. I told you not to trust him. Reed stared at the stars above. I needed to believe there was still someone innocent here. There isn't, Kayla said. Not anymore. They dragged themselves to a small hill and watched the sky. Drones flew by, watching the drama unfold. The voice returned. 7 teams remain. 3 will enter the final arena. Kayla turned to Reed. We need to become monsters, Reed, or we won't survive the next test. Reed didn't answer. He stared into the distance. The betrayal had changed him. He had trusted the wrong person. Now, he would never make that mistake again. The next mission came without warning, as all missions did. A blast horn echoed through the camp, followed by a red flare in the sky, which meant emergency. Response: no briefing, no rest, no mercy, and before the recruits could ask why or where, they were already inside the dropships with weapons heavier than their arms could carry, and orders they could not question. Jason sat near the back, his fingers gripping the edge of the seat, his eyes fixed on the limping warrior across from him. The one Alira mentioned, the one with scars on his face, like claw marks from something old and angry. The one who never spoke unless spoken to, and even then with one-word answers like knives. They landed in the ruins of an old mining outpost buried under layers of sand and tech long forgotten. The structures half melted, and the air too quiet for a battlefield, but Grusk gave them no chance. To think only pointed toward the tunnels and said, "Bring out the source, alive or not, does not matter. Just do not return." Empty. Jason moved, with his squad, into the darkness. Torches flickering against rusted walls, and whispers in unknown tongues crawling through the stone, but something felt wrong from the first step. The map made no sense. The signal was faint, and the deeper they went, the more the tunnels felt like a trap. Waiting for a trigger, they reached a chamber where the ceiling dripped blue steam, and the walls were marked with Varnari script that even the veterans could not read. And there they found it, not a weapon, not a machine, but a child, a small alien child sitting alone, humming a tune that felt like old wind. Before Jason could step forward to speak, the air exploded. Fire flashed through the corridor, and 2 recruits fell, screaming, not from enemy fire, but from inside. Friendly weapons turned in silence and confusion and betrayal, the kind that breaks the ground under your feet. Jason dove behind a broken pillar, dragging the child with him, and shouted to his squad to hold position, but no answers came, only screams and smoke and shadows. Moving faster than logic allowed, he turned to see the limping warrior locked in hand to hand with a soldier whose face was half gone, replaced with metal. "This is not a rescue mission," Jason yelled. "This is a setup. Someone knew we would come, and someone wants us." Gunther warrior threw his attacker aside and looked at Jason with those ember eyes now fully lit with rage, not at Jason but at the truth. They both now understood that Emperor does not care who returns, only that someone does. Jason checked the child, who was unharmed and strangely calm, as if this was not new, as if betrayal was part of breathing. Then he turned to the wall, where the strange marks began to shift, glowing softly and forming a shape that Jason had seen before in Alira's message. A key, a path, a warning. They needed to get out, and fast, but the tunnels were now war zones, and half their team was either dead or turned. Something had infected them, or replaced them, or tricked them into obeying. Captain Rayner stood alone in the control tower. Everyone else was either changed, missing, or too far gone. The screen before him blinked red. Earth Command was still silent. The comms were jammed or abandoned. Maybe Earth knew everything, and simply chose to leave them behind. He pressed the record button on his datapad. Day 37. Squad Alpha, Veltrax 9. 3 alien nurses were assigned to support us. But this wasn't support. This was conversion. Half of my squad has merged with something unknown. Some are stronger now, but they're not human anymore. I don't know if I'm the last, or just the next. Behind him, the door creaked open. Private Kane entered. His eyes still glowed faintly, but he walked slowly, carefully. "I can still feel them," he whispered. "Inside my head, like they're waiting." Rayner turned. "Can you fight it?" Kane hesitated. "I don't know if I want to." Outside the base, the red sky began to crack literally. A giant rift split the clouds open, and a ship much larger than the nurse's pod descended. It looked like a city floating in the air, covered in glowing symbols. It made no noise, but the air itself trembled. Rayner and Kane ran out to the courtyard. Every remaining soldier, changed or not, was standing there, staring up in silence. The nurses were already waiting. "They're here," said Vera. "Who?" Rayner demanded. "Our creators," Syrah replied. "They come to complete the final phase." "What final phase?" Leia turned to him, eyes calm. "Unity. No more soldiers. No more nurses. One form, one purpose." A bright beam shot down from the ship, scanning the base. It passed through everything metal, tense, flesh. When it touched Rayner, he dropped to his knees. A voice entered his mind. Not words, thoughts, memories, desires, all being pulled apart and read like files. He screamed, but Leia walked to him and placed her hand on his forehead. The pain stopped. "You are stronger than most," she said. "You still have choice." "What choice?" he asked, breathing hard. "Become part of something beyond your species, or be left behind. There is no going back." Later, the nurses led the squad to the outskirts of the forest. There, they found something new, a chamber built into the land itself. It wasn't human or alien. It looked grown, like stone and technology had merged. Inside the chamber, they found rows of glowing cocoons, others who had merged before them. Humans, aliens, beings they didn't recognize. All in peaceful stasis, breathing, glowing softly. "This is not death," Vera said. "This is ascension." Sergeant Diaz stepped back, rifle raised. "This is a graveyard," Leia replied. "No, it's a waiting room." Rayner stood at the center of the chamber. Around him were people he trained with, people he laughed with, people who once feared alien war. Now they embraced it. Kane stepped forward. "I think I'm ready," he said. No, you're not, Reyna said firmly. You still remember who you are. The signal came like thunder without sound, a sudden flash across the sky of the war moon. A line of white fire cutting through the clouds and disappearing into the void, like a whisper sent by fate. And Jason saw it from the high ridge, where he stood beside the limping warrior holding the memory core in his hands, like it was the weight of the universe. They had no time. The Emperor had already sensed movement, already sent his hunters, already filled the sky with drones and machines that flew like shadows with blades for wings and orders to kill without question, and they were coming fast, faster than Jason had ever seen, faster than hope could run. He turned to the warrior, who now handed him a small black device shaped like a star, and glowing from within with a pulsing red light. Place this near the heart of the machine, and it will burn everything in its path. Even memory, even light. Jason nodded, and gripped both pieces tightly, then looked down at the camp below, where soldiers trained without knowing they were already dead, where machines slept without knowing they were already cursed, where the war was not about freedom or justice, but about power wrapped in lies. Took a deep breath and began the descent. Every step a battle, every second a race against the sky as alarms rang, and sirens screamed, and the entire war moon shook under the weight of what was coming. Cliff reached the chamber again, the place where it all began, the hidden machine still hanging in silence, like a beast pretending to sleep, but the glow in its chest now brighter, as if it knew he had returned, as if it feared him. He placed the red device near the core, and it hissed with heat, and light. The cube in his hand began to crack, pulsing harder. Now, echoing through the room with a sound like a heartbeat, mixed with crying. The machine opened its chest like a flower of metal and blood, and Jason saw, inside, not wires, not circuits, but something living, something that looked like his own face. Crying, reaching, breaking. He felt it then, a surge of memory, not his own voices, not his own screams, not his own fear, but all poured into him like a storm trying to drown fire, and he dropped to his knees, screaming in silence, holding his head as the truth came. They had made hundreds before him, failed copies, broken minds, shattered souls, all trying to become the bridge, all trying to become what he was, and none of them survived, and he was the last, the final, the perfect mistake. Then a voice broke through, not the machine, not the Emperor, not the dead, but her. Jason opened his eyes, and there she was, standing in the chamber, glowing like a star, her arms raised and her eyes full of tears and fire. Alira had come not through message, not through hope, but through the old ways, through the mind bond that no one used anymore, because it killed those who tried unless they truly loved him. She reached him, and took his face in her hands, and whispered again, Jason, you do not have to be what they made. You are more. You are real. You are mine. And he felt it. The storm calmed, the pain slow, the fire return, and he stood with her beside him, facing the machine. One last time, and he spoke not with anger, not with hate, but with peace. You do not own me. Never did. And then he pressed the core into the heart of the machine, and the world broke open. Light poured out of the chamber, tearing through metal